Alright, we got another video. This one is called Central's Cali's Worst Nortinos? They killed 3 innocents, ruined their city, and lived double lives. I ain't gonna lie, this sounds a bit action-packed a little bit. Nortinos? There we go.
Understanding the human. I got from this video was understanding the human connection that the youth need between providers and opportunity youth that they need to have the proper opportunities to be successful in life.
It was a warm July evening in 2019, and a group of people had formed a candlelight vigil on the steps of San Francisco City Hall for a slain 15-year-old, Davon Han, who had been gunned down in the Mission District just a few weeks earlier. At the vigil was the boy's mother, Sheree Johnson, and a man named Fernando Madrigal. Madrigal walked up to her, introduced himself as a victim of gun violence from a shooting just 1 month earlier, and hugged her. The cameras were rolling. Nobody in that crowd, not the supervisor standing nearby, not the community advocates, not the reporters covering the event, had any idea that the man embracing the grieving mother was the one who had killed her son. Fernando Madrigal had been living 2 completely separate lives for years. He was an
Whoa, hey, turn out. This man went undercover to meet with the mother of the man he killed. Hey, man, there's some demonic activities.
Anti-gang advocate, known in his community as a peacemaker who had left a Norteño clique years prior. However, just 3 weeks earlier, Madrigal had shot Han in the back on a sidewalk. By the time anyone had figured that out, 2 people were dead and a third had spent months looking for a husband who would never come home. This is the story of a gangster living a double life of scandal, who had been so successful in his attempts at painting a public image, he'd rounded up the support of conventions, activists, and even city supervisor Hillary Ronen. San Francisco's Mission District is one of the most well-known neighborhoods in the country. It is a dense, historically Latino stretch of the city running south from Market Street towards Cesar Chavez, packed with taquerias, murals, community organizations, and generations of families who built lives there. The neighborhood has real character and real community, but it also has a dark side, a serious gang problem concentrated on specific blocks and intersections that most residents navigate around without a second thought.
Nigga, don't fuck you, nigga, scratch, nigga, get the fuck off this bus, bitch ass nigga. Fuck your bitch. I'll shoot you right here, bitch. You get lucky, I'm nigga.
The main conflict in the Mission runs along the same fault lines that have defined gang violence across California for almost 6 decades. Norteños versus Sureños.
What's up with that blue? What's up with that blue belt, fool? You don't bang? Nah, fool, it's coño rojo loco, nigga. Yeah, for your little weak ass little sucker, nigga. You're lucky I'll fuck your ass up, fool.
The Norteños, or Nortes, are the Northern California side of the war. They wear red, align themselves with a prison gang called Nuestra Familia, and claim their turf by the number 14, because N is the 14th letter of the alphabet. Their enemies are the Sureños, known as Sures, who wear blue and answer to the Mexican Mafia, the Southern California prison gang that controls street operations below Bakersfield. The Mission District, sitting in the heart of Northern California, was historically Norteño ground, as was a lot of territory in San Francisco, Oakland, and the greater Inland Bay Area. Within the broader San Francisco Mission District Norteños, known better as SFMD Norteños, there are several smaller cliques. One of them was called Locos Northside, or LNS. The LNS clique treated the intersection of 24th and Cap Streets as their main hub. Cap Street runs perpendicular to 24th, a few blocks east of Mission Street. This is where the LNS Nortes congregated, where they watched the block, and where they enforced their territorial lines. Their immediate rivals were the Sureños, who operated to the north and west, and a local gang called Army Street, which claimed the territory around the Bernal Dwellings public housing complex near Cesar Chavez Street. This was a case of 3 rival factions in tight proximity, and the area felt the impact of it.
Peers around the corner, and then he takes the gun out of his right pocket, runs out into the middle of Paloux Avenue, and fires repeatedly at a black sedan. Here's a look from a different camera. There are the 3 guys we saw earlier, and there is the gunman in a red sweatshirt running into the street, aiming right at the black sedan. Fernando
Madrigal, aka Nando, grew up in the Mission District and came up through this world. He was born around 1998, which means he was a teenager when the neighborhood's gang violence was escalating through the mid-2010s, and a young adult when he started committing crimes that would eventually land him in federal court. At 13 years old, he was locked up in San Francisco's juvenile hall for robbery. He later spoke publicly about spending an entire month in a cell during that stint, which included 30 minutes out in the morning and 30 minutes at night, and how that experience had made him angry and depressed. He would use that story in front of crowds and cameras as the centerpiece of a public persona he was carefully constructing while simultaneously running with the LNS Nortes.
I'm proud of you, Doc. Among speakers today, youth activist Fernando Madrigal, who spent time at San Francisco Juvie Hall for robbery when he was 13.
I was locked in my cell for 1 whole month straight. 1 whole month straight, 30 minutes out in morning, 30 minutes out at night shift.
He said the incarceration made him angry and depressed.
He had a tattoo on his arm for a friend who went by Lil Ponch, a juvenile Norteño who had been shot and killed in 2015. Madrigal's Instagram account, nando.nidital, documented his life in a way that FBI investigators would eventually use against him. But in those years, it was simply part of his image. He was a young man from a hard neighborhood who had been through it, and he leaned into that story everywhere it could take him. By 2017, Madrigal was 18 or 19 years old and fully active as a member of the LNS clique. In January 2017, he and other Norteños assaulted and robbed a Sureño gang member near a McDonald's on 24th Street. 3 months after that, he carjacked a man he suspected was a rival gang member. When he was convicted of the carjacking in April 2018 in San Francisco Superior Court, he had already served 313 days in jail. He got out and went right back to both lives, the gang and the advocacy work, as though the time inside had changed nothing at all. The first murder happened on the afternoon of July 12th, 2018. Madrigal used his...
Wait, so these advocates, these other advocates, didn't see that he went to jail again for a robbery and a shooting? They just let that slide. Alright.
phone to contact a man named Luis Garcia and told him he wanted to buy some marijuana. Garcia had no reason to be suspicious. He and Madrigal were connected. The court would later hear they were related by a marriage within their families. Garcia was a working man, employed in construction on the Chase Center, the new Golden State Warriors arena going up in San Francisco's Mission Bay neighborhood. He had a pregnant wife at home. He had even recently gotten a raise, so all things considered, he was doing fairly well. He drove his black SUV to a parking lot near Candlestick Point in the southeastern corner of San Francisco and met Madrigal and an armed accomplice there around 6:20 in the evening. But Madrigal hadn't come to buy anything. He and his accomplice had come to rob Garcia. What happened in that parking lot ended with Luis Garcia shot from behind and killed. Madrigal then took Garcia's cell phone, drove toward Foster City, and threw it over the railing of the San Mateo Bridge, expecting it to land in the bay. It landed on a pier instead. Garcia's wife, terrified when her husband didn't come home, used Find My iPhone and tracked the phone to that pier. She went there and found it covered in dried blood with a visible fingerprint on the case. It was a clear and obvious sign of foul play. However, Madrigal had already driven Luis Garcia's body to the Oakland Hills and dumped it in a wooded area. It wouldn't be found for almost another 2 years on February 20th, 2020 by tree trimmers working in the area. The skull was missing and was found separately on March 25th of that same year. However, by the time his identity was confirmed, his wife had been raising their baby boy, named Luis after his father, alone. After the murder, Madrigal kept moving. He kept posting on Instagram and going to community events. He kept building relationships with supervisors and nonprofit directors who had no idea the heinous crime he'd committed. In June 2019, he was shot in the back of the head in the Mission District. He survived, but bullet fragments remained lodged in his skull. The community rallied around him. His supporters launched a GoFundMe
For the last year, Fernando has been on a mission to address the needs of young people impacted by violence and incarceration, wrote Ruth Barajaz, who organized the page. He has spoke at multiple conferences, sharing his personal story as a victim of violence, having been previously shot and stabbed. Oh, brother, look at the story they came up for him. And I mean, they didn't even know, but nobody was on the case. Nobody was looking at his Instagram, but like matching
his recovery. The narrative was that a promising young anti-violence advocate had been victimized. More evidence, people said, of how urgently the Mission District needed anti-gang solutions. In the days after he was discharged from the hospital, Madrigal was back on Instagram, posting himself at a metro station holding a rifle with a large capacity drum magazine as a train pulled up behind him. He was still on probation from the carjacking conviction throughout this time. Then, in July 20...
And nobody knew? Nobody looked him up in the system?
19, Madrigal was shot again in a separate attack, this time more than 10 times. That second shooting had destroyed his left eye and broke his jaw, both hands, and his right arm, requiring multiple surgeries. So when he showed up to a City Hall vigil weeks later and told reporters he had been a victim of gun violence, he was telling the truth. He was covered in scars and had bullet fragments in his skull. But Madrigal was no victim. In the days leading up to July 8th, 2019, Madrigal posted photographs of himself on his Instagram account holding a black assault-style rifle in the parking lot of the McDonald's on 24th Street, the same corner where the LNS clique had been operating for years. He also posted a video of himself loading a magazine while wearing a glove on July 6th, apparently to avoid leaving fingerprints on the rounds. He captioned one of the videos, "Straight thugging. Didn't want to bring out the Glock, so I brought the mini chop." In the hours just before Madrigal would commit his worst crime, messages exchanged in a group chat that included Madrigal's account were already signaling that something violent was being planned. Just after midnight, Madrigal and a group of other LNS Norteños were out near 24th and Cap Streets. They encountered a teenager in the area. The standard practice when Norteños ran into someone in their territory was to ask where you were from. It's a common practice used by gangs to determine whether someone was affiliated with a rival gang. The 15-year-old's name was Davon Han, known to his family and friends as Day Day. He was a member of a youth violence prevention group called United Playas, which mentored young people in the Mission and surrounding neighborhoods. His last text message that night, sent to his United Playas program coordinator, said he was planning to come in the next day and do some volunteer work. He was about to start his freshman year at Lincoln High School that fall. However, Han had made a dangerous decision that night. You see, he lived in the Bernal Dwellings apartments in the territory claimed by Army Street and was now standing squarely in Norteño territory. But Davon Han was not in Army Street or any gang for that matter. In fact, he was considered a rising star within his anti-gang program. He was the exact opposite of someone the Norteños were after. Madrigal fired an AR rifle and shot Davon Han in the back 9 times, killing him almost instantly. He was pronounced dead just 10 minutes after.
9 times? 9 times? Nigga's sick.
The shots were fired. He was identified at the scene by the school ID card in his pocket. After the shooting, Madrigal and his crew drove several blocks south to the Bernal Dwellings and fired a shot at the building with the same rifle, a message to Army Street, assuming they just killed one of their people. San Francisco police officers who had responded to the ShotSpotter activation spotted a black Honda Civic speeding away from the area and gave chase. Madrigal led them on a high-speed chase down highways 101 and 280 before getting away near John Daly Boulevard in Daly City. That now brings us back to the beginning of this video, 3 weeks later at the City Hall vigil. Fernando Madrigal stood on the steps of City Hall and hugged Davon Han's mother. In August 2019, Supervisor Hillary Ronan wrote a letter on official city stationery to San Francisco Superior Court Judge Bruce Chan, asking him to allow Madrigal to be released early from probation on the carjacking conviction so he could, in her words, focus on his rehabilitation and...
So she knew that this man was on probation for a carjacking. and knew that he had other charges. But you know what? Let's let him run the organization or be a part of the organization. Did she not see the dates? This was recent.
Relocate to a safe place as soon as possible. She described his community work and said she had worked with him on legislative efforts through her office. She had no idea what was actually going on. While all of this was happening, 2 other members of the LNS clique had committed their own killing. On the afternoon of January 23rd, 2018, Alvaro Reyna Cordero, aka G-Boy, and Oscar Huadron Diaz, aka Cuddy, were driving through the Holly Park neighborhood near Bernal Heights in a Honda HRV with Huadron Diaz behind the wheel. They spotted a 20-year-old man named Duby Ortiz Guardado standing at a bus stop near the intersection of Lee Street and Richland Avenue with a female companion. They, for whatever reason it may be, believed Ortiz Guardado to be a Sereno gang member. They did a slow drive-by first, passing the bus stop to get a look at him and confirm his identity before acting. Then, Huadron Diaz parked the car about 2 blocks away and idled at the curb while Cordero pulled on a black and white skeleton mask, got out, and ran toward the bus stop. He fired 9 shots. Duby Ortiz Guardado was hit in the body and died. The woman standing with him was shot in the face but miraculously survived. Cordero ran back to the car and the 2 sped off. 2 days later, when the SFPD attempted to arrest Huadron Diaz, he ran. A search of his home turned up ammunition matching the type used in the shooting and a fully automatic machine gun.
Off the block as they collected evidence. One man was killed. He has not yet been identified. The second victim was taken to the hospital. Right now it is unclear if the shooter and the victims knew each other.
The FBI had been watching the LNS clique and building the case piece by piece. They had surveillance footage, cell phone location data, Instagram records from Madrigal, and forensic evidence from both of his murder scenes, including the body in Oakland Hills and the bloodied cell phone off the San Mateo Bridge. On August 14, 2020, 13 months after Davon Hahn was killed, an FBI SWAT team arrested Madrigal in San Francisco. He was just 22 years old. A federal indictment charged him with the Hahn murder, and in December 2020, a superseding indictment added the Luis Garcia murder and brought in Cordero and Huadron Diaz. When Madrigal was arrested, he had 2 firearms, dozens of bullets, and nearly 7 bands in cash on him.
This morning, the FBI and the San Francisco Police Department arrested Fernando Madrigal, also known as Nando, for the murder of a 15-year-old victim in the furtherance of gang activity. Our FBI SWAT team participated in the arrest due to the violent nature of the alleged murder.
All 3 men eventually pleaded guilty in February 2023 to 1 count of federal racketeering conspiracy. In their plea agreements, they admitted that everything had been committed in the name of the SFMD Norteños. Madrigal admitted to both the Garcia murder and the Hahn murder. Cordero and Huadron Diaz admitted to the bus stop killing of Duby Ortiz Guardado. Like clockwork, while Madrigal was waiting to be sentenced, he didn't slow down. He set up an extortion scam from jail, having a female gang member impersonate one of his court-appointed attorneys and contact his girlfriend, demanding $10,000 and threatening to stop representing him unless the money was paid immediately. The plot unraveled when jail officials read his letters detailing the plan to his accomplice. The scheme caused both of his defense attorneys to withdraw from the case, which significantly delayed the sentencing. Then, in August 2023, while held at Santa Rita Jail in Alameda County, Madrigal and 2 other inmates chopped up another inmate with jail-made shanks. On December 7, 2023, Fernando Madrigal was sentenced to 33 years in federal prison by U.S. District Judge William Orrick. Alvaro Reyna Cordero received 26 years. Oscar Huadron Diaz received...
Wait, 33 years? That's all he got was 33 years? And he chopped up somebody's body when he went to prison? I mean, while he was in jail? That doesn't add on no charges?
21. After the sentencing hearing ended, a brawl broke out in the hallway outside the federal courthouse between supporters of Madrigal and the members of Davon Hahn's family. Police had to respond to break it up.
Served decades in prison for the murders of 3 people. One of the victims was a 15-year-old boy, just happened to be an innocent bystander. The gang members include Fernando Madrigal, who lived as a justice reform advocate until his arrest. Our ABC 17 spoke with Madrigal about his work combating youth violence just 3 months before he murdered the 15-year-old. He's facing 33 years for that and another killing. 2 other men are facing sentences of up to 26 years in the other murder, along with another shooting.
Supervisor Hillary Ronan issued a public apology in September 2023 at a Board of Supervisors meeting with Davon Hahn's mother, Sheree Johnson, in attendance. In an awful twist of events, Ronan said, the man who later admitted to killing Davon was someone I had previously tried to help. It was the kind of statement that tried to draw a line under something that couldn't really be drawn under. Luis Garcia's baby boy, named Luis after the father he would never know, was born after his father's body was already decomposing in the Oakland Hills. Davon Hahn's last text said he'd be in to volunteer the next day, before he was killed by the very man who'd hugged his mother at his vigil. Madrigal had led a double life on social media, leaving his gang work to the late hours at times of the day where no one was looking, while posting online where everyone could see. It just goes to show you can't trust anything you see online.
I was locked in my cell for 1 whole month straight. 1 whole month straight, 30 minutes out in the morning, 30 minutes out at night shift.
Let me see, does he have anything else? That's all he gets is 33 years. Hugging his victim's mom is some demonic stuff? That's some crazy stuff right there. Using gloves to load the magazine, but recording it, showing his face, such genius thinking. That's what I'm saying. San Francisco ain't Central Cali, get your facts straight. 33 years, 10 years in prison, that's whack. They need to serve more time in prison with hard labor. Where's them people at who killed Fulio? Those people are getting sentenced to prison. They are going to go do work at the some place near the jail, near the prison, but they're gonna do work. The prosecutor, or no, the person for like the prison said we need that sweat equity. So where's the person for him? Where's the sweat equity for these people? Come on now.
Now what you gonna say when it all comes crashing down? Girl, you're gonna love me. What you gonna do when all your love hits the ground? You're gonna love me. Now what you gonna say when it all comes crashing down? Girl, you're gonna